Hello, everybody. Hi, this is Big Steve again. We're talking about the invasion of the United States. I've been hearing that a lot on the news. The invasion, we're being invaded, we're being invaded. Well, you're absolutely right. And we're being invaded in the only way that you can take down the United States of America. See, America has several problems beyond the border, the southern border. One of the main problems is the United States has a tendency, its people in particular, has a tendency to believe their own hype. They drink their own Kool-Aid. They poison themselves. And in doing so, what you find yourself doing, what you find is that people assume what they can do. Now, I get that the United States, there are a lot of guns running loose. Most states now have constitutional carry or some kind of where you can possess a firearm. So that means that there are probably 10, 15, maybe 15% of American people, population walking around carrying guns or having immediate access to a weapon. It's fine and good. But what about the other 85%? They're sitting ducks. And as an invading army or an invading coalition, because we heard that word a lot, coalition, particularly with the United States. When they go and do some dirt and they don't want to do it by themselves, they don't want to be the only ones with their hands dirty, they'll put together a coalition. Well, right now what we have is a coalition of Venezuelans. We have a coalition of Chinese. We have a coalition of Ukrainians. We have a coalition of, what's that other big group? Hondurans. We have a big it's one more in there. Venezuelans, Hondurans, it's one more. I can't think of them right now. Ukrainians, Chinese. And these are just the people that's been caught coming across the border. There are probably way more countries in this coalition. Now you have to wonder, why would Ukrainians go across the southern border? Why would the Ukrainians go across the southern border? They got carte blanche. All they do is land on the ground in the United States. If they ain't flying them to the United States, land them on the ground, set them up, hooking them up. Why would a Ukrainian sneak through through the border, the southern border? I'll tell you why. Simple. Ukrainians have never been our friends, not ever. The Ukrainians have more in common with Nazis than they do Russians. That's how come Ukraine and Russia is always into it. Because let us not forget our history. World War II, Russia was the one. If it had not been for Russia, World War II would have been lost. If it had not been for the sacrifice and all the bodies that the Russians threw into the meat grinder to grind that machine to a halt, to the point where it could be destroyed. We're talking about the right. That's what we're talking about. But we seem to forget that. That's part of critical race theory. That's your history you don't want to know. You want to know that Pop was the hero of World War II. Pop probably wasn't the hero of World War II. It was some dude named Vladimir, that was the hero of World War II. It was some dude that had a Russian name that saved England, that saved Germany, that saved England, that saved France, that saved Europe as a whole. period. France got defeated. Britain got defeated. England was getting their heads smashed in. The United States got in. They were getting their heads smashed in. But then when they came out to Russia, Russia was the only one that said, okay, I'm standing up and I'm fighting. And they fought tooth and nail and threw body after body after body after body after body as the German army. Until the Germans had to say, okay, enough is enough. Okay, so Ukrainians, Venezuelans, Chinese, Hondurans. Venezuelans and Hondurans have a connection to the Chinese. See, it's a lot of stuff that has been spoken of that we have a tendency to forget. When Venezuela, when Hugo Chavez, when the United States was trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government, Venezuela went to China and said, can you help us? And China said, well, I can't do it on the front page, but I can do it down off in the article. And that's what China did, and China had been doing that. That's one of the main reasons why the coup failed in Venezuela. Because the leadership of Venezuela, the elected leadership of Venezuela, had support from the Chinese. Honduras was the same way. China came in and did like they did in Africa. They brought in opportunities, economic opportunities. They brought in growth. They brought in medicines. They brought in stuff that they needed in Honduras that was being denied to them by the United States and the UK. Just like Cuba is really, really good friends with Russia. Now, I don't know if critical race theory done snatched this out of your books about the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was merely about the United States being very, 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 very afraid of having nuclear weapons in Cuba. Because even back then, the flight time wouldn't have been that long to get from Cuba to DC, to Cuba to New York, Cuba to Chicago, Cuba to LA, Cuba to Texas. Wouldn't have been but a hot minute for the missiles to get from Cuba to there. It's 90 miles. Okay. So, now that we kind of understand about this coalition, now let's talk about how this coalition would invade the United States. The best way to get somebody the gun is to ask them to give it to you, or for them to volunteer to give it to you. Now, why would a sensible and rational person give an enemy a weapon? I'll give you a better example of what that's like. That's like this. I've been saying for years, at least 2 decades, that this is a bad idea with these fucking Mexicans coming into the United States. Not just Mexicans, but Latinos in general. Because what white people fail to realize about Latinos is that the thing that y'all like about them is the very thing that you should be very afraid of. The thing you like about them is that they're a lot like you. Go back in history. Spaniards and white folks, side by side, slaughtering, murdering, and killing. Europeans slaughtering, murdering, killing all across the planet. In some kind of way, you figure you still have an allyship with them. But you also got to remember that these people were conquerors before the United States was ever even made. Before it was even conceived. It wasn't even a gleam in the king's sack. Spaniards were already conquering. and going all over the world, while the Europeans still thought that the world was flat. The Spaniards knew the world was round and had been sailing all over the world. They knew the world was round. That's how come they were able to sail to South America. That's how come they were able to sail to Mexico. That's how come they were able to sail to the United States. That's how come they were able to, because they knew that how to circumnavigate the earth because they knew it was round. Chris Columbus was still talking about going seeing if the world was flat in 1492. Let's just keep it a buck. So what you're actually dealing with here in America is a civilization, and that's what I call Spaniards, I call them a civilization, modern civilization, because no matter where they are in the world, they all have one thing in common. They all speak Spanish. And as long as they all speak the same language, that is the tie that binds them. And all the other little nuances, like different being brought up in different areas of the world, all those little nuances can be put to the side because they have a commonality of language. That's why most Americans think Europe are their friend. Europeans are their friends because they speak the same language. Well, let me go ahead and break that bad news to you. You have never been friends with Europeans. Hello. You, white people, have never been friends with Europeans. Right here in America, you have never been friends of the Europeans. In fact, they look down on you because they know, let's do some old critical race theory here, which I use that in a way to say the erasure of history. When you hear me say critical race theory, I'm saying erasure of history. And they just throw the race in there to try to justify what they were doing, saying it was niggas when it wasn't black folks. When the history you need to know and understand is the one that's going to save the country. When you get your history taken away from you, then you lack the ability, to be able to deal with what comes in the future. It's that simple. That is passed on in genetic codes. That's how basic and visceral that is to existence on this planet. But let me give you your little history about why Europeans don't like you. Americans in particular. Now they'll deal with white folks from all over the world. But you, they got a problem with. Because they know your history. America and Australia, you know why these two countries are so much alike? Because they started the same way, as a penal colony. Every so often, England would gather up all their sick, diseased, criminally insane, criminal, empty out their prisons, put them on ships and take them somewhere and drop them off and say, fuck it, have at it. And it just so happened that when they landed here in America, they didn't know about all the resources here. But they were still criminals in the eyes of the Europeans, the English, the British, the Europeans. You were still criminals in their eyes. And they looked down their nose at you. And that's why they didn't have a problem with like the Irish and the not the Irish and what was them other dudes over there? Anyway, from the lesser European countries, they didn't have a problem with them coming over here because they were, in their mind, they were getting rid of the riffraff. Getting rid of the riffraff, putting it over there with the other riffraff. And they still feel about America the same way today. In Europe's mind, the United States got it backwards. Europe owns every single white person in the United States of America. They view you as an indentured servant. That is why the United States pay billions and billions of dollars to the UK every fucking year, because they're paying your freight for being here. But they don't tell you that, because if you knew that you were being treated like an indentured servant, a perpetual indentured servant, you indentured servant, your children are indentured servants, your grandchildren are indentured servants, your great-grandchildren are indentured servants, and so on and so on. They know that. You don't. Because your history tells you, oh, we're at the top of the world, we're the cream of... No, you just have the ability to kill everybody and have shown the willingness to kill everybody. It's like a rabid dog. You know, you want to put this motherfucking dog down, but you're too scared to put this dog down. Because you know if you fuck it up trying to put this dog down, the dog is going to get you. It's going to retaliate. So that's why most of Europe is hands off with the United States. Not because the United States is such a bright and smart and intelligent country. No. It's because they are afraid that you will destroy the world. Now, I don't know if that's what you want, but that's where you're at. So, the best way to take over the United States is from within. It's from within. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how you backed yourself into a corner. Give you a little demonstration of how you backed yourself into a corner. Give you just a little example of how you have backed yourself into a corner as a country. Think of the United States as a box. In this corner, you got whites. In this corner, you have Latinos. In this corner, you have Asians. In this corner, you have Middle Easterners. Now, I know the question right now, you're asking, well, where are the black folks in there? Don't matter. Because we don't, according to them, everybody that's in them corners, we're just a nuisance. We're something to be tolerated. So I'm not even going to bring them up right now. So what you do is, if you notice here, every one of these groups, the United States have fucked with in some sort of way. Every single one of them. Whether it's bombing them, whether it's taking their land, supporting people who do both of those. Oh, and I forgot about them. Now I know we say, well, it was the Japanese that we dropped a bomb on, so why would China be mad at us? You know why China be mad at us? Because they're Asians. Why would Filipinos be mad at you? Because they're Asians. Why would people from Guam be mad at you? Because they're Asians. Why would anybody anywhere in the world that's Asian not be mad at you? Because you decided you wanted to drop atomic weapons on their people, on their group. Because in their mind, that could have been China. They dropped that shit on. That could have been Philippines. It could have been Vietnam, Vietnamese. It could have been anybody. You dropped an atomic bomb on. Could have been anybody. Just so happened Japan drew that unlucky straw. Latinos, they have a problem with you. Not only did you come in and you took their country, a big chunk of their country, but you relegated them to the point, you dismantled them to the point where almost every Latin country is a narco state. It's a criminal state. You heard what I said? It's a narco state. It's a criminal state. And you think about all the innocent Latinos that live in these narco states that have been slaughtered, murdered, raped, killed, dropped in acid because the United States won't go in and stop those drug cartels because their government has already proved that they're not going to do it. That's why they're fleeing here. They're getting a large portion of them are fleeing here. It's to get away from them fucking drug cartels. It's that simple. Middle Easterners, well, they're here because of money. It's that simple. If they were really, really smart, what they would have done was find out who got that money from Iraq, the billions of dollars that was in cash that Saddam Hussein had, that mysteriously vanished. One of the Middle Easterners got that money. A big chunk of it. And the United States got the rest of it. But Middle Easterners got a big chunk of that money. And any money that was sent there to fight terrorism, they got parts of that money. So why are they here? We killed, bombed, and maimed, and murdered them people for the last 20 years. Why would they come here? Because America's the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's what you keep telling yourself, but that's not why they're here. They're here to help with the invasion of the United States. Everybody that we've had, that white people have had a problem with, are here. In this country, on this land, probably in a convenience store near you, probably out cutting your grass right now, or probably at the Chinese food restaurant where you go get your Chinese food. The enemies of the nation of the United States are here in this country and have been for years. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go just a little further with this. I'm gonna show you something and see if you think like I think. So when you have a military, you have to be able to supply that military. How do you supply a military in enemy territory? You don't let the enemy know that you are supplying your troops. How do you do that? First thing you do is make laws that make you exempt. That make you exempt. Now let's just say for smoke and mirrors, I got a concentration of people in Michigan. I got a concentration of people in Florida. I got a concentration of people in Arizona. And I got a concentration of people in Oregon. How do I move materials, particularly materials of war, between my people? I use trucks. Plain and simple. Big trucks. Big trucks can go to Michigan, from Michigan to Florida, Florida to Arizona, Arizona to Oregon, and Oregon back to Michigan. And never be interfered with. Never be interfered with. One, because laws that have been passed exempt Mexicans, exempt most Middle Easterners, and exempt most Asians. Okay, yeah, well, no, they have to follow the rules and regulations of the DOT. You talking to a dude that drove truck for 35 years. Trust and believe. When I say you want to get around DOT, it can be done. Without breaking a sweat, it can be done. Checkpoints, them Border Patrol checkpoints, shit. Down in South Texas, and we doing frac sand and shit, that big ass Border Patrol checkpoint right there on 35, go around that motherfucker all day, every day. Drive right past that motherfucker and look and see and look over there at it. Because if you want to get around something, you can get around it. But it makes it a whole lot easier when you can't check me out. Let me show you what I've seen. And I've seen this. I've seen Mexican trucks do this. I've seen them do this. And I've heard them on the radio because they had their own little channels on the CB they be on. And what they'll do is one will be up front and he'll say, okay, scale house is open. So what they'll all do is bunch up. And then they'll fall back and other trucks will go around them. And then they'll bunch up right behind that truck, those other trucks. Now, when that scale house get full and they change them lights, all of them go right around that scale. I've seen them do it. I've seen them all pull over on the side of the road, wait for them to close the scale to go around the scale. I've seen them pull out the road and put in the truck stop, wait for that scale house to close and go right up and go. Then once the scale house closes, go right on down the highway. I have seen them do it. Middle Easterners do the same thing. Asians ain't that savvy about the game yet. But Asians have a certain protection, particularly with that anti-Asian hate crime bill. Law enforcement know they fuck around, pull one of them Asians over, get out of line with them, they'll end up with a hate crime. And with all that hoorah and rigmarole they made up about what was going on with the Asians, all they did was make it so that you can't fuck with them. That's it. Last thing police want to get is a hate crime charge. But that's what they're messing with them Asians. And the Asians know it. So now we're transporting materials all over the country. Being that you can transport up to 80,000 pounds at a time without a permit, you keep your weight about 75K, you good. Keep your weights right on your axles, you good. Most of the time you hit that weighing motion, that motherfucker give you the grip, the bypass all day, every day. So therefore, you can transport weapons, you can transport equipment, you can transport logistics, materials, and you can gather intelligence. You know, that's what makes observation forces is what make our military so effective. Is most of the time is because we have eyes on what we're going to blow up. Sometimes it's even lased, so that when the plane fly over, it drops the bomb, the laser locks on to the laser and lands on the bomb, lands on the material they're trying to destroy. Same. You give these people maps to every single town, every single city in the United States of America. Then you put population concentrations online in the United States of America. So now, not only do they know where everybody lives, they know how many of each group is in these particular areas. Hello? Are you starting to see how bad this is about to get? Are you really starting to see how bad this is about to get? You're moving materials. I tell you what, about 4 or 5 years ago, it was a big thing, and it was this farmer up in Wyoming or Wyoming, somewhere like that. He was out tending his cows, and it was 3 containers sitting in the middle of his field. But the containers weren't on a chassis. They were just sitting on the ground. And they wasn't his. So he called the local sheriff. The sheriff came out, the sheriff deputies came out there. These things were sealed up. And so they were like, he's like, this is not mine. He said, well, you mind? Well, they're not mine. Open the motherfucker. And they opened them up, and the damn things were full of weapons and ammunition from the nose to the back, from the nose of that trailer to the back doors, from the floor to the ceiling, with weapons and ammunition. And I believe they even had a few RPGs in those trailers. But what was so strange to me was, how did those trailers get there if they wasn't on a chassis? And if they were on a chassis, what did they use to take them off that chassis and set them on the ground? And who was supposed to come back and get those trailers or the materials out of the trailers? We don't know. It's a big mystery. But I'm almost willing to bet that it was materials being moved around to get ready to take on the United States. Now, I'll go back to my guys with the guns. And, you know, I got my gun. I'm a bad motherfucker. I got my gun. Yeah, you a bad motherfucker as long as you're shooting at somebody ain't shooting back. I'll say that 1,000 times over. You look at police. They supposed to be heroes. Acorn hit a truck. Motherfucker shoot up his own shit. That show you how panicked these motherfuckers is. Woman in her own house with her own shit. Gunned the fuck down. 2 women, 2 lady cops, double magged them. Because they panicked. Cop goes to this guy's house. Ain't he supposed to be at this guy's house? Look through a little window. See the guy coming to it's fucking midnight. Dude come here and knock on his door. He comes to the door with his piece in his hand because it's midnight. Who the fuck is knocking on my door at midnight? Police see the dude with his piece in his hand, start shooting through the fucking window and hit this dude twice. Panic. So are you depending on them motherfuckers to defend you? Oh, you sad. Oh, monkeys. You're sad. Well, I was at the gun show, so I bought me. I got 10,000 rounds of ammunition. I got 18 different kinds of rifles, 14 different kinds of shotguns, and 30 different kinds of pistols. I'm ready for these sons of bitches. When I put my gear on that I bought on Wish.com, I look just like an operator. Right until that bullet starts come sailing through your skull. You understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm putting down there? That it's all fun and games when it's just you playing the game. But when somebody else enter into the game, then it's not fun and games no more. Especially if that other person is serious about their business. They ain't pretending. You think about it. Middle Easterners in particular. Terrorists, and I'm throwing up them air quotes, because one man terrorist, another man freedom fighter. If firefighters fight fire, what does freedom fighters fight? Okay. You talk about dudes wearing pajamas. I mean, you look at the video from Israel and Palestine. These dudes is out here with track suits and tennis shoes on, going toe to toe and realistically whooping Israel's ass. You know what make them motherfuckers so dangerous? Is that they don't give a fuck. They got nothing to lose. But that same kind of soldier fought the U.S. Army, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Marines, the Air Force, Special Ops, Delta Force, Rangers, Force Recon, Air Force Black Ops. Fought all of them motherfuckers to a standstill. The only way that the United States could actually win the war in Iraq and or Afghanistan is to use nuclear weapons. That was the last that they had. That was the last jelly bean in the jar. But these dudes with flip-flops and a towel on their motherfucking head and pajama pants fought the finest military machine ever devised by humankind to a fucking standstill, and didn't just do it once, they did it for 20 fucking years. And billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars later. And that's what pissed me off so much about these so-called operators. They come home and they talk like they dick is 19 inches long and they just the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. No, motherfucker, you're not. And I'll tell you to your face, look, bitch, if you in the desert and you can see for a fucking mile, you supposed to be able to hit what the fuck you're shooting at. Take your little leprechaun looking ass and put your ass in that badass bush over there in Korea or Vietnam or somewhere where there's some motherfucking shit, a motherfucking hide behind. You're useless. You're utterly useless. I'll take troops straight out of goddamn basic training over you all day, every day. When you got tunnels to deal with. When I was stationed in Korea, nigga, I wasn't scared of the goddamn North Koreans. Fuck that. I was scared of that bush. Because motherfucker, the whole battalion of motherfuckers would be 20 feet from your ass and you wouldn't know it until they started shooting. Give a fuck what you got in the air flying around. We already know that shit don't even hardly work in a goddamn big ass open ass desert. Can't hardly find motherfuckers. The Taliban hid from you motherfuckers for 20 years. And as soon as y'all left the country, guess what? They took them motherfuckers a day to take Afghanistan back. One day. Instead of saying, well, you know, they only took her, we wasn't there. Maybe y'all start saying to yourself, maybe they took that motherfucker back because they didn't take it in the first place because they didn't want to get nuked. How about that? Not because you's a bad motherfucker, because they didn't want to get nuked. The closest thing the United States came to nuking the Taliban and Al-Qaeda was using the mother of all bombs, the Moab. That was the closest they got. And I bet it was somebody somewhere pushing real hard, campaigning real hard for that motherfucker being a low-yield nuke. But calmer heads prevailed, and they compromised, and they used the Moab. So, I said all that to say this. The United States got every terrain you can imagine. Deserts, mountains, swamp, wooded, basically jungle, urban. It's got everything you can imagine. Now I know a lot of times these folks out in these rural areas, they hardy people and they have the mindset and the ideology of a frontiersman. Guess what? The Middle Easterns don't even have a faintest clue what the fuck a frontiersman's in. And they are not Native Americans. Now, we can say something about them too, and I think this is funny. Do you not realize, Mr. Man that got all the guns and shooting, bang, 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 I'm the motherfucker? Do you not realize the United States almost lost to a motherfucker with 2 sticks and a piece of string? And it wasn't until you got a motherfucking repeating rifle that you even stood a chance. Let's be clear about that. Your frontiersmen were going up against people with 2 sticks and a piece of string. That's real talk. If you want to know what I'm talking about, 2 sticks, bow, arrow, piece of string. That's what almost defeated them frontiersmen. Motherfucker with a bow and arrow. Now, so that's just the Middle Easterners that are here. We know that China is sending thousands of Chinese here. Here's the kicker. They're not sending Chinese women. They're sending Chinese men. And all of them are of fighting age. And when they first started showing that shit on the border, that was the first thing I noticed. I'm like, I love motherfuckers like they all about the same age. Ooh. Latinos. The Latinos are making a killing facilitating the Chinese and the Middle Easterns coming up through the southern border. So they are definitely not acting like they're your allies. And if they're helping them get into the country, you have to ask yourself, to what end? Where do the Latinos that are here stand? You don't know, because they got you Jedi mind tricked into thinking they're your friends. They're not. To be honest with you, here in the United States, there are only 3 groups of people who got some skin in the game here. That's Native Americans, that's white people, and black people. We the only 3 people that's got some skin in groups of people that's got some skin in the game here. Everybody else is here slow conquering the United States. They're slow conquering. They're doing it so slow and so gradual that it'll be done before you even realize it. It'll already be conquered. These people, particularly your Latinos, if you pay attention to them, they're getting these political offices. They're getting in political offices. And once they get in these political offices, they've already demonstrated that they're willing to vote and support and create bills that benefit them. And those are the bills and shit that we know about. What about all these little backdoor bills that they doing that we don't know about? Like how they used to only go 7 miles from the border in a truck. Now they can go all over the country. Well, do you think white folks came up with that? Hell no. The Latinos came up with that. And white folks signed off on it. That's that manipulation thing. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to be in position to where they actually control some shit. They already control a lot of guns in this country. What do you mean? Man, did you know that most sheriffs in the United States of America, particularly through the South and in the Southwest, are Hispanic? Think about how many counties that is. The sheriffs are Hispanics. The sheriffs then hire mostly Latina deputies. And the state, county, arms the sheriff and his deputies to the fucking teeth. Why would you arm somebody whom you don't really know their loyalty? Why? You don't know their loyalty. You just think you know their loyalty. They don't. They're loyal to themselves, their people, their culture, their countries. Period. Full fucking stop. The United States is just a means to an end. And the means is to get a big chunk of this motherfucker back. So, we've covered the Latinos, the Asians, and the Middle Easterners. The last one in this box is white people. You are going to doom this country. This country is not going to exist because of you. Now, I had a dude get mad at me because I said everything wrong with this country is white people's fault. It's white people's fault. Everything that's wrong in this country is white people's fault. Now, you may not want to believe that. You may not want to hear that. You may not want to listen to that. But that's the truth. White people run every single thing. You can't name one thing in this country that white folks don't run. You know, even the most hated of shit in this country is actually has been proven to be run by white folks. Or white folks got their hands in it. Black Lives Matter. When you say Black Lives Matter, white folks just turn red. But did you know the motherfuckers that was actually running that motherfucker was white folks? Not only were they white, they were gay and lesbians. They were from that LGBTQ plus XYZ group that was actually running Black Lives Matter International, which is two different things. Black Lives Matter International and Black Lives Matter Grassroots were two different things. But you gave your money to Black Lives Matter International, who took the money and said, fuck the grassroots. Why? Because them white folks that was running that shit got paid. So, you run the government, you run law enforcement, you run the Senate, you run the House, you run the Supreme Court, you run city councils, you run states, you run the medical field, you run technology, you run transportation, you run the military, you run aviation, you run every single aspect of this country. So if the country is fucked up, who fucked it up? You fucked it up. Because you had a shitty plan off the rip, and nobody had balls enough to tell you that your plan is shitty and you shouldn't do it. Because the first thing you say when somebody say that to you, well, you can make a little something off of it, then they immediately change their direction. So here we are, on the verge of not existing anymore. And you got a president that's facilitating this. I don't understand why, since white folks created this problem, y'all, I ain't mad at you goddamn for going up there January 6th. I'll be honest with you, I ain't mad at you. I just think you bitches should have took your motherfucking guns. If you was really gonna do some shit, you really need to take your heat, put your body armor on, all that shit you put on them YouTube videos where you're an operator, and go your ass up there and get some shit done. But even other white folks cowered you out of that. Now leave your guns in the car. We gonna be peaceful. See how that shit turned out. But I ain't mad at you. At all. Because that's what it's gonna take to turn for us to have a place. Because I want you to understand something. You know what I'm saying? I was saying earlier that Europeans don't like Americans. Never have, never will. You, as an American, don't have any place you can go to live outside of America. You can go visit, but you're going to take your ass back home because they ain't finna have you over there. Europe done already told you, keep them big ass pickup trucks and barbecue grills, keep that shit over there. We don't need that shit over here. We good. Y'all stay over here with that shit. And black folks, we ain't going back no Africa. Fuck Africa. I don't know nothing about no Africa. Shit, one hand people say it's the bomb, and the other hand people say, niggas ain't welcome. Black folks in American blacks ain't welcome. So I'm going to split the difference and just not fuck with them and stay where I'm at. That's just the way that's going to work. Native Americans, they like shit. Let's get high. We got casinos, we're making a little change, and fuck all the rest of Native Americans. We up here at the top. We're getting paid. Us chiefies, us white chiefs are getting paid. Ain't no such thing as a white chief. And if I was a Native American, I'd run them motherfuckers out. Bitch, you got to go. You ain't got to go home, but you got to get the fuck up out of here. Fuck that road. Okay, what you talking about? Now see, you get the bullshit, I'm going to join up with them niggas. And when I join up with them niggas, you going to have a problem. Because other than us, niggas is the only one that's got some major beef with you motherfuckers. And you taking it for granted that they ain't saying shit and they ain't fucking with you. You taking it as a sign of weakness. I'm telling you what it is. It's a sign of them people just saying, okay, I tell you what. I'm going to let you motherfuckers make it because I live here too. I don't shit where I eat. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, this is y'all right here. You call yourself got allies, and they're actually your enemies. And the best way to the best way to look at this is this right here. Is that if they all get together, it's gonna be 3 groups against 1. I bet you ain't marinate on that. It's gonna be 3 groups against 1. We already know that history has shown that when the rubber meets the road, you talk a good game, but when the shit get nasty, you motherfuckers ain't trying to hear it. You looking for another way let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Them people ain't gonna want to talk to you. Because at that point, them people are going to be looking for their piece of the United States. They're going to be looking for their piece of the United States of America, and they're going to get it because you're going to allow them to get it. So you need to take a hard look at that man in the mirror or that woman in the mirror. While you focusing on hating me, you need to figure out what you're going to do about them motherfuckers. Now, I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. All this mistrust and hatred and ignorance you have toward me, when these motherfuckers come calling, you know you can't call me, right? You know you can't people that say, look out, Steve, these guys are coming in here, they're shooting at us, and they're dragging us out the house, and they're beating our asses, and shooting us in the leg, and fucking us up. Can you come help us? We need your help. God damn it, we need your help. We gave you we gave you a black woman on the Supreme Court. You know, we said fuck you when it came to George Floyd. When you said Black Lives Matter, we said all lives matter. What we're saying right now is white lives matter, can you come help us? And niggas is gonna be like, I'm not real sure about this. And you end up with a mass exodus of black folks leaving this country. But those who do stay and fight, they're not going to fight for you. They're going to fight for their place. They're going to fight for their place. And the ones that they're going to take down, we don't know yet. But you know, when this happens, I can see black people in this country walking away with a couple, 2, 3 states. I'm looking at Texas. Well, fucking let the Mexicans have Texas. We'll take Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. We'll do that. Gotta have something on the go. Gotta have something with some good growing land, and gotta have some good grazing land. That'll be Oklahoma. So we could see that. And that's some shit we could deal with ourselves. We can handle ourselves. There's enough of us to handle and protect that. But where does that leave you? Concentration camps, shot. You know, y'all seem to be okay with Israel eradicating the Palestinians. I wonder if you're gonna feel okay when this group right here decide to eradicate you. I wonder if you're gonna be okay with that. I'm just curious. But I'm just asking a question. Let's put some stuff out there. The United States has already been invaded. It's already been invaded. And they're already moving materials for this war. They're already doing all that right now. And they're positioning themselves so that when the word go out, they're all going to move at once. Latinos, Asian, and Middle Easterns. They're all going to move as one. And to fall. It's Big Steve, just keeping it a buck. Love, peace, and